You're listening to Release Your Resistance, episode 32. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Are you ready to talk about one of my favorite topics that I talk about frequently, and you've probably heard me mention before? It's journaling. And today, I want to tell you all about my journaling practice and habit and what I do and what I don't do. And you'll get some ideas and motivation about how and why you should and can journal daily. The first thing I want to do, of course, to convince you that you should and can journal daily is to tell you about the benefits of journaling. And then I'll give you some tips on how to get started or how to continue if you already do have a journaling practice, and maybe some other ideas that you can incorporate into your journaling if you don't currently use these tips and tools that I want to mention to you. I will share some of my favorite tools with you. And I'll give you some journal alternatives. It doesn't all have to be the traditional sense of sitting down with a beautiful book and a pen. It can be other things too. And at the end, I want to answer a few common questions that I've heard when I talk to people about journaling. So let's get started. Why journal? The reason why I believe everyone in the world should journal is because it helps you get awareness around your thinking. If you think about thoughts as just like utterances in your mind, just suggestions and beliefs that are just always subliminally humming in the background as you make decisions and as you react to situations, wouldn't it be so helpful to actually see what you're thinking and be able to look at it from a third-party perspective? By journaling daily, you actually write down your thoughts. And this is the premise, this is the basics of self-coaching. And I think everyone in the world should have a coach, even if it's yourself, even if you are your own coach. The benefit of self-coaching is that you can see your thoughts, see what results they are creating for you, and then intentionally decide if you want to keep thinking those thoughts and continue getting those results, or if those thoughts aren't really that helpful for you and maybe they're actually debilitating. Maybe those thoughts are kind of resistant. So that's the number one benefit of journaling, is that it helps you get awareness around your thinking. Another benefit of journaling is that while you are journaling, it actually can invite your intuition to open up and to make itself known. I think we're frequently on autopilot. I think we're frequently just reacting to the thoughts in our brain without thinking about them. And I think frequently the part of our brain that is offering us the loudest thoughts is our primitive brain, our amygdala, the part of our brain that's always trying to protect us, the part of our brain that wants us to seek pleasure and avoid pain and conserve energy. And it's not usually our intuition that we really tap into and listen to. So by journaling and by letting yourself write down your inner voice thoughts, you actually can get a peek into the messages that your intuition has to offer you. One really surprising thing that I love about journaling, that I am so excited for you to start experiencing for yourself if you haven't already, is being able to see your own progress and evolution. Once you've been keeping a journal regularly for months and years, you will be able to look back at your past self from 6 months ago or 6 years ago, and you'll see how you've changed and how you stayed the same. And won't that be so interesting to look back and see what was worrisome and bothering you back then if it still worries you or still bothers you? That's great awareness to realize that you've been letting something bother you and take your attention for years. Or wouldn't it be so interesting to look back and see something that was such a huge crisis and such a big deal for you 3 years ago is barely even a distant memory for you today, and you can't even remember why you were so excited or upset or whatever about that situation. If you know me at all, if you've heard my podcast episodes or know me in real life, you know that I always love to think about my future self, and I love to do favors for my future self, and I'm so excited to become my future self because she's amazing and I just want to take care of her. So one way that I do favors for my future self is to write daily now, because this is a novel that she will love to read in the future. Once I heard a speech given by a guy who was talking about, as we read fiction, why we love it. And what he pointed out was part of the reason why we love reading fiction is because really good authors do a great job at describing the emotions that their characters are experiencing and feeling. And I liken this to me writing my own journal and thinking of my future self. She's going to be reading that a year from now or 6 months from now, and she'll see the emotions that I am writing about today. And sometimes as I reread what I wrote last year, last month, I do think, what happened next? How did she get out of that? Because time has passed and I forgot about it. I like to think of writing a journal as writing a novel for my future self to read and enjoy. Hopefully, I have piqued your interest enough and gotten you kind of excited enough that you are going to start or continue a daily journaling practice. My advice before you start is don't start until you actually decide to believe in the value of journaling. I just mentioned a few of the benefits of why I think everyone should journal. So if you agree with those, you can use those as your belief in its value. Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to decide today in the excitement and the momentum of hearing me gush about journaling and decide to start a journaling practice for yourself if you haven't also decided that this journaling practice is going to be so valuable for you today and in the future. You've heard the expression that you have to know your why before taking on any new project. I want you to know your why about journaling too, so that as it gets difficult or on the days that you don't feel like doing it, your why, your motivation, your belief in the value of journaling will cause you to continue it, even if you don't feel like it, and even if it feels a little uncomfortable or it's not really your thing. My recommendation for you to start is to make journaling as easy and or as enticing as possible. What I mean by that is if you are thinking, in order to start journaling, I would actually need to own a blank journal. Like I would need a leather-bound journal with beautiful linen pages, and I would need like a really special pen. Okay, that's going to take me some time to find it, and I want to be sure of the pen before, and I don't know if your brain is going there, that's too much. You need to back it up and decide if you're making it easier or harder on yourself. What I'm saying is make it as easy as possible. If you're ready to start journaling right now and you believe in the value of journaling, grab a notebook. That works. Grab some loose sheets of paper. That works. Make it as easy on yourself as possible. And at the same time, make it as enticing as possible. If writing your journal on loose paper is not enticing at all and doesn't make it feel meaningful or special, and you're worried about losing the pages, then that is not enticing. Don't do that. Go ahead and buy yourself the leather-bound linen page notebook and the special pen. Whatever you need to do so that not only is this new habit easy for you, like you're not putting up any obstacles for yourself, but also enticing for you so that it's something that you look forward to and something that you enjoy and relish. And while you're starting or restarting this journaling practice, allow yourself to be a beginner. Remember, this might be new for you, or this belief of the value of journaling may be new for you. So expect there to be some resistance. Expect it to be a little uncomfortable as you find your routine, and expect your journaling practice to change as you learn what you like, what you don't like, what works for you, what's very effective. So, I want to give you some of my favorite journaling tools. Some of these are actual physical, tangible tools, and some of them are more mental or thought tools that I use. The tangible tools that I'm recommending, I don't think you need to have a leather bound linen page, fancy notebook or journal from a stationery store to start journaling. I personally use a graph composition notebook. So I've used a lot of different styles and types of journals over the year. And most recently, for the last couple of months, I've really, really fallen in love with using graph paper instead of ruled paper. And I like a specific composition notebook with a specific kind of cover from Office Max. I also use Papermate Flair pens, and every day I write with a different color because I like to see the days separated as I read my journal. Another tangible tool that I have, well, this is both tangible and intangible. I have writing prompts. So when I start a new composition notebook, I will actually go through and write my writing prompts in on the margins every few pages. So I have a list of writing prompts. I just reuse them over and over and over again. So they don't get old or repetitive. There's no problem to reuse your writing prompts. And I sprinkle new ones in as I think of them and as I learn them. It's like planting seeds. I like to have my writing prompts pre-filled in throughout my pages of my journal so that on the day that I arrive at them, it's new and it's fresh and it's always exactly the writing prompt that I need on that specific day. It's amazing how that works out. I also have some mental prompts that I use that aren't written down anywhere, but I feel like I have a little bit of writer's block or I'm a little stumped about what I should write about. I have some go-to writing prompts that just come to me naturally. For example, I love to make gratitude lists. So if I'm sitting down one morning writing and I'm thinking, I don't have anything to write about, I don't know what I should write, I will make a list of things that I'm grateful for. Another go-to that I use is what I call a list of 10. So if I am working on manifesting something for myself, or if I'm working on solving a problem or wondering what a solution to a problem might be, I'll write down the numbers 1 through 10 on my journal, and then I'll start coming up with answers to that problem or that solution or how I can get what I want. And so the first one or two usually come easily, and then I kind of start to feel a little tapped out of solutions, but I stay on that list of 10 and I open my mind and I wonder, and it causes me to come up with some really interesting and different ideas. In fact, I want to do an entire episode about how I use a list of 10 in my journaling practice to open my mind and help me realize possibilities. So if you think that would be interesting, please let me know and I will work it into my schedule. I also have a very adorable tiny little gift box full of slips of paper, almost like fortune cookie slips. And on them are printed some intentional thoughts and feelings that I know I want for myself. Every day, as I'm journaling, I will open my beautiful little gift box, pull out a tiny slip of paper, unfold it, and I'll read that intentional thought or that intentional feeling, and I will write a little paragraph about how I want to feel that feeling or how I want to think that thought that day. Some other journaling tools that I use that are non-tangible are my self-coaching tools. I am a coach. I am certified as a coach. I use the Life Coach School's coaching tools and processes in my own self-coaching and coaching with my clients. And so I use those self-coaching tools in my journaling as well. So I'll frequently, but not always, but I'll frequently do a thought download, especially when something is bothering me or when I have something weighing on my mind and distracting me. And then I very, very frequently do models. And I have a lot of different flavors of models that I use. I'll use a last best thing model, or I'll do something called the results raft when I'm trying to figure out how to get a result that I want. And frequently, I'll just do standard models. If you want to learn more about models, I did 2 episodes on models, and I will link them in the show notes for this episode so that you can find them. If sitting down with a composition notebook or a beautiful journal from a stationery store is not your preference, or if you're wondering, are there any alternatives? There are. I, in the past, kept journals on random scraps of paper. I really did this. I used to travel a lot for work, and I used to be waiting in a lot of places. This was, years ago before we had devices with us all the time. So I would frequently have scraps of paper like receipts or note cards, 3x5 cards, or greeting cards, that someone had given me. And I would actually keep journals on little scraps of paper and then collect them all into my journal. So that's an option for you too. While you're out, while you're on the go, if you don't have a physical journal with you or in front of you or at all, if you just don't even own one, you can still start a journal on paper, just any paper that you find, and then you can include it all in a journal, in a collection later. Another thing that I did, maybe about, I don't know if it was a full 2 years that I did this, but it was a really interesting journaling practice that I really, really enjoyed, was to have a quick entry journal on my phone. So I found an app that would give me a daily reminder. Basically, every day, a little template would pop up for me, and it would ask me like 6 questions that I had created. So I created this little template in this app for myself, and every day it would just ask me some quick, short questions like, what's your mood today? What are you thinking about lately? Did you have any impulse spending or eating today? What's bugging you right now? What are you listening to? I just wanted to kind of keep track of those things daily. And it was really 5-minute journal experience on my phone. So here's another alternative. You don't even have to keep your journal in a notebook or on paper. I kept it in my phone. And this app that I was using let me download all the entries from all the different days. And then I recently found it on my downloads folder, and I had so much fun scrolling through and looking and seeing what I had written. This goes to show one of the reasons why I had used the question, what's bugging you right now, was I was really curious to find out in the future what I would think about what had bugged me in the past. And it just is a good reminder to me that something that is so annoying today or so troublesome today is not going to mean anything 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now or 3 years from now. It's just going to be a tiny blip on your radar. So I thought that was a really good reminder to myself. So I had this interesting thing happen to me years ago. I was in a relationship with someone, and that person read my journal. And at the time, it seemed like this was the worst thing ever. I felt betrayed. I felt judged, of course. So that experience actually turned me off of journaling for years, for many, many years. Like I couldn't trust myself or anyone around me, I didn't want to write something down and then have someone else read it and know my innermost thoughts. So a couple things on that. One, I got over it. And so if you have that fear, I really encourage you to get over it too, because the benefit of journaling far, far, far outweighs the risk of having someone read your journal. And who cares if they read your journal? Like really, who cares if someone knows what you think? Who cares? It's fine. It's not an issue. So after that event, my first foray back into keeping a journal was a non-linear journal. And I don't think this is like a thing. I kind of just like made it up as I went. I had been given this beautiful journal, blank journal from a stationery store. It was beautiful and I wanted to use it, but I didn't want to keep a journal because of my experience years earlier. But I found value in writing down like expressions that I liked or notes that I wanted to keep or little personal exercises that I was doing on myself. And this was all before I found coaching and self-coaching, but I just noticed that I really liked to collect my thoughts, my ideas, my brainstorms, and quotes that I liked or ideas that I liked. So I used this notebook that I had as a nonlinear journal. So I didn't write in it daily. I carried it around with me pretty frequently. In fact, I think I had it with me almost all the time because anytime I got an idea or an insight, or anytime I saw or heard an expression that I found very motivational, I would write it in this journal. And I would just flip the pages around to wherever there was a blank page, and I would just put it in there. And that was actually the journal where I started my birthday lists. So I still do use that journal to fill in, and there's still plenty of blank pages because I wasn't writing in it daily and because I was just jumping around from page to page. If the idea of a daily journal where you're sitting down and writing in a chronological format doesn't really spark interest in you, a nonlinear journal may be a great way for you to start and, like I did, get your toes dipped in the water and get started on this habit. And then another journal alternative, it only works if you keep a journal, even a nonlinear one. But another journal alternative that I have is to offer you the idea and the permission during your journaling time to read as well as write. Your journaling time isn't only for writing in your journal, it's also about going back and rereading what you wrote before. And what I like to do is I like to think about, what was I thinking and writing 2 weeks ago today or 1 month ago today? So sometimes I'll go like in increments. I'll go back 30 days and then 90 days and then a year ago and then 2 years ago. And I just like to see, how did I think and how did I feel and what was I doing in those increments from today backwards? I collected a few common journaling questions that I've heard from different people, and I wanted to address those on this episode. One thing that I've heard is, what do I write about? I don't know what to write about. What if I have nothing to say? This happens to me sometimes. I sit down, I get all my things ready to go. I sit down, I look at the blank page, and I think, what do I have to write about? My best advice is just start writing. Just put your pen to paper and just write whatever comes into your mind, because that helps you kind of like get in the mood and the mode of writing, and it helps you relax and open up. And by not resisting that feeling of, I don't know what to write about, you're not resisting it. You're just sitting with it, allowing that, and then going ahead and writing anyway. And what I found, sometimes I'll sit down, I'll write the day and the date and the time. That's how I start my journal entries. And then I'll look at the blank line and I'll think, I don't know what to write. So I will write, I don't know what to write. And usually by the time I'm finished writing the last word of that sentence, my mind is already like, well, you could write about this. Well, you should mention this. Well, don't forget this. And so I think just starting to write opens your mind and helps you relax a little bit. Another way that you can handle the question of what do I write about, of course, is having all those prompts that I mentioned. I think those are so helpful. Another way is to ask yourself questions. This one's so good. I love to ask myself, what was I thinking about yesterday? What am I excited for today? What do I hope happens? What's on my mind right now? I just ask myself questions as if I'm curious about myself, because face it, I am. I want to know what I'm thinking. So I think just asking yourself questions as you're sitting there with your blank page and then answering those questions, before you know it, you won't be able to write fast enough. Another question that I've heard people bring up when they have some hesitation or resistance about journaling is they might ask, well, how do I keep the habit? Like, I might start writing a journal. I get this big stroke of inspiration or motivation to start a journal, but then I forget after 2 days. I don't keep the habit going. So I really recommend creating a very enjoyable ritual for yourself. I have this morning ritual, which is the best part of my day. I'll never miss it. I'll do whatever I can to keep it, even if I'm out of town, even if I've got a crazy schedule. So what ritual would make it be something that you will remember and you will look forward to and makes it really, really meaningful and helpful to you? Another way that you could do it is set a timer on your phone, like create an alarm on your cell phone that says time to start journaling, and then another one, however long later, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour later, that says done journaling. So that way, when your timer or your reminder on your phone goes off, it could be a daily reminder that you set for yourself. You know, okay, I want to go take care of this. I want to go sit down, and then honor that reminder. Do not snooze it. Don't delete it. Don't procrastinate it. And of course, a question that I get is, well, I don't want to have a journal because I am afraid someone in my household or someone who I know might read it. And as I mentioned, that happened to me. I got over it. Journaling is still my very favorite thing to do. So my offer for you, if you are worried about that, is to think, is that likely? And if it is likely, what would that mean? Why would that matter? Why is that a problem? Maybe it is a problem. Maybe it would matter, but at least explore those fears and thoughts before just deciding that you're not going to do it. And then, of course, you could think of some places to hide it or to keep it so that no one else could find it. Carry it with you, maybe. I'm sure there's a lot of ways that you can overcome that fear, or maybe just live with the fear and know that it's a risk and decide that it's worth it to do it anyhow. So now I hope I have given you some ideas and motivation about starting a daily journal habit. And I am very curious, do you think these tips and ideas will work for you? Or do you have any resistance to starting a journaling habit? I want to hear. I want to know what you think about it. So send me an email at hi@bexb.org or leave me a comment on the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/journal. And your next step, now that you've heard this episode, is to use one of the suggestions that I've shared with you and then tell me about it. You can come to my Facebook page. It's Release Your Resistance on Facebook, or you can tag me on Instagram. I hope you're following me on Instagram. I am at Bex_Beltran, or of course, email me or a comment in the show notes. I would love to hear how you implemented one of the suggestions that I just told you about. And if you're one of my favorites, meaning that you are on my email list, I have created a list of intentional thoughts and feelings for you on a colorful sheet of paper. So if you have a color printer, you can print it off. Even if you just have a black and white printer, it doesn't have to be colorful. It's just more fun if it's colorful. Print off all these thoughts and feelings. Slice them up with a paper cutter or a pair of scissors into little strips, fold them, put them in a little container like a small gift box or a little bowl or something. And then every day you pick out one of those, just like a fortune cookie slip. You pick it out, open it up, read it to yourself, and journal about it. So if you're one of my favorites, I've sent you this list so that you can share this practice with me. If you're not one of my favorites yet, I would love for you to join my favorite list of people who I send emails to once or twice a week with the episode and with all the fun extra things that I send to my favorite people. And you can join at bexb.org/favorites. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my journaling practice. I hope it's motivated you. Next week, I want to talk to you about friendship. So hopefully you'll come back for that. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.